Hello, and welcome back to the final part. Wait, I was like, wait, where did it go? Where'd my starting spot go? I'm just gonna keep that in there. The the final part of exploring the lore of Equestria War. And in today's episode, we'll be going over the newest addition to the continents, Zebrica. Before the lunar banishment, long before the lunar banishment, in 3400 BLB, the southeast region of Zebrica sees a thriving theocratic empire rise. Its name lost to history across the region, using magic of a kind not since seen. They controlled the climate in the region and created a paradise. Which, very interesting to me. I'm very excited to see what that does about the southeast region, and if that's part of any focus trees. I'd love one of them trying to regain that sort of magic, and the control of that sort of magic in the focus tree. That just sounds interesting to me. 2600 BLB, first unification of the maritime kingdoms through conquests under King Shepshur of Merithis. 2200 BLB, the southeastern empire slowly collapses. The region falls into anarchy, which soon gives rise to the tribal societies, and the now uncontrollable magic emanating from the ruins of the old cities causes the entire region to become overgrown with jungles. 1800 BLB to 725 BLB. After the collapse of the southeastern empire, Kiran tribes settle southwards into a land that later becomes known as Zacharia. In 1700 BLB, traders, marauders, and explorers originating from an unknown semi-legendary West Zebrica city established a vast hegemony, dubbed Zonica, which settles the northern coastline. Great cities like Hippone and Zur are founded, some of these merchants move inland, fording local rivers and forging a path through the jungles and highlands, making limited contact with Quagga or Quaggatai now. 1742 BLB, alleged founding of Carthage by Queen Zito. Zito led a group of refugees from the city of Zur after being banished by her father. 1350 BLB, first time of woe, a decade of terrible disasters for the Mary Egyptians' kingdom. Famines, unnatural burning rain, infections of the water supply, and multiple plagues batter the country and reduce it to a husk of its former self. The kingdom falls apart as the rulers of large cities declare themselves kings over the Nile. Nile, haha. The last glory days of Equestria, the strongest independent donkey state. And while we're here, I'd like to show you the leaders of this nation. There's the normal king, and then there's Eeyore, which is a Winnie the Pooh reference, and Donkey Kong, from the popular Donkey Kong series, and Donkey. I don't know if this is also a reference, but it might be. If you know what they just referred to, tell me in the comments. But I just thought that was hilarious that they've just made... There might be other countries that they make references like this in their unimportant leaders as well, especially in Zebrica, where there's a whole bunch of content that's nothing there for yet. But man, I just found that hilarious that was a thing. But moving on, Carthaginian in 623 BLB, Carthaginian traders established New Carthage on the Griffonian island of Scarlet. It will soon become an independent trade hub, and Carthage would gain dominion over the whole island. In 552 BLB, First Zonic War between the Carthaginians and Carthage. Tensions between the two powers had been rising for years as they competed for dominance over the Middle Sea. After Carthaginian merchants were sent to support minor states in what is now Asturian against Carthan, the Carthaginian Senate approved a delegation of war against Carthage. Carthaginian troops crossed the Jojo Straits and landed in northern Scarlet, but soon became cut off to Due to the superior Carthaginian navy, Carthage, however, couldn't win the land war against Carthon and Carthaginian naval reforms. They were eventually defeated on land and sea. 500 to 1 BLB, the merry Egyptian kingdoms began to slowly decline. Incompetent kings lose wars and land, though there are intermediate bright spells, and this time period is characteristic of stagnation, failure, and the rise of rival powers such as Carthage and the Arabian princes. They are also challenged by the unification of Hippogriff, Pelago, and the tribes of Abyssinia, which had spent centuries hiding from merry Egyptian dominance in their mountains and deserts. In 490 BLB, Carthaginian troops landed north of Zebrica and sacked the city of Carthage, burning it to the ground and starting the rapid decline of the Carthaginian Empire. The land is eventually annexed by the city-state of Zur. 100 BLB, legendary formation of the Kingdom of Abyssinia under the Maunic dynasty. 15 BLB, Carthage declares independence from Zur and once again becomes a powerful city-state. Actually, it did last quite a while. It lasted like 475 years. It just didn't feel like it lasted long when it went from there to there and they got their independence. After lunar banishment, 0 ALB, Terra is established by lunarists fleeing from Equestria after defeat of Nightmare Moon. Yeah, we all know them. 10 to 12 ALB, Queen Pacuno, uniter of many feline tribes, declares war on the chaotic merry Egyptian kingdom. A resulting war results in the loss of enormous amount of merry Egyptian lands, all the way up to Trot Anus. 58 ALB, Kingdom of Galan Zomu is established by the Zufua dynasty in the Great Lakes. When 50 ALB, Abyssinians subjugated the donkey nations in the south. So, one thing about this is there's not many nations that we actually know a lot about yet, because a lot of these don't have focus trees. So we're kind of just guessing what's going on with a lot of these besides their background. 232 ALB, the Diamond Dog tribes of South Zebrica are united under King Baccarat, founding the Kingdom of Hyena, or Quagliti Dervishes today, and claiming the land between the Gragates and Great Lakes region. Intermixing and arranging marriages between the tribes slowly homogenizes the population, giving their distinct hyena appearance compared to other Diamond Dogs. 250 ALB. The Saddle families unites the heartland of what would become known as Saddle Arabia. 400, Saddle Arabia subjugates the donkeys of Equestria and Zurich, seizing the lands from Abyssinia. Now, I can tell why there aren't many donkey nations. I think there's one at this point in history at our time, because they keep getting subjugated. Why do the donkeys keep getting subjugated? What is going on? Poor donkeys. 404 ALB. Zebra tribes invade Zecuria, being the first of many Zebrican wars that would come later. 420 to 440 ALB. Sagas speak of a legendary warrior pair of brothers, Canucks and Ivor, who together achieved the blessings of the king of Alenia to set out west and claim Hindia for themselves and the king. Their conquest began Alenia's rule in Hindia, which is known as the Deer Law. Huh. Cool. 440 ALB. Meanderingly Pool arrives in Carthage and meets with Sulfrit, Zalir Zinegrid. 450 ALB. The fractured Kieran tribes unite into a single nation for the first time, thanks to the Vermeulen priests. They would eventually come the Vermeulen dynasty. 647 ALB. The trade post of Cluj Towns is founded near an oasis. It is nominally part of Abyssinia, though on the far frontier of the nation it preserves a strong spirit of independence. 510 to 567 ALB. The Grand Prince of Saudi Arabia begins a campaign against the merry Egyptian states. Over the course of 57 years, Arabian forces gradually conquer more and more of the country, culminating with the capture of the city of Somnambula in 567 ALB. The governorate of Mare Egypt is established, uniting the country in the first time in 5 centuries, albeit under foreign rule. I don't know if that's great. You're under a foreign ruler, but okay. 527 ALB. The noble family of Novo overthrows the ruling priest knights and unites sea pony and hippogriffs under one nation by founding the kingdom of Hippogriphia. I see. Okay, so that's when that happened. 525 ALB. The Quagatai complete their invasion of Zonica by capturing Hippone. The Zonican lands north and west of Koltdare are turned into vassal states, paying tribute to the Quagatai. Khan Yakub resettles Quagatai tribes in Koltdare and the hinterlands of the steppe to stand ready to quell potential unrest in Zonica. 500 to 600 ALB. Saudi Arabia launches multiple campaigns southwards to unite all of horsekind under one nation and establish a provincial system to govern the vast new territories. 580 ALB. Curia completes its conquest of Zebrica, subjugating the last independent Curan statelets. Curia is now united, or what seems to be China-ish. 672 ALB. Saudi Arabia attempts several incursions deep into Abyssinia, but are beaten back in the rough terrain. A peace treaty is signed, making Abyssinia into an independent tributary. 675 ALB. Federation adventurers begin exploring eastern Zebrica, establishing trade ports on the coast. Yeah, that's such an interesting little thing, is that Federista is like the only other continent besides only other country besides Wingbarty that has some sort of presence that still exists there, which is such a random country to still have it, but whatever. 700 ALB. Federation compels or Zuid Zebrikenci Virstadt now, begins settling in southern Zebrica. The region is sparsely populated and devastated after a destruction campaign by the Zeblu. A Romani legion, last remnant from an independent Raumo, has been annexed by the Griffonian Empire, ventures south towards the Kompol settlements, but gets stranded in the southeastern jungles. Eventually they meet a local Zebra king who accepts them as his personal retinue. This leads to the establishment of the Roman Khazarate. Okay, that's some interesting lore. So they came from actual Ramau? Wow, so they came from Ramau and established a nation there that still exists. That's so interesting. Okay. 750 ALB. Removal of the Claomoic dynasty and installation of the Katwi dynasty. Thank goodness, they're easier to say, so I'll take them over them. On the Abyssinian throne, beginning the Abyssinian Dark Age as the nobilities assert powers. Okay, never mind. Maybe I shouldn't be thinking over that then. Sorry, Abyssinia. 800 ALB. The prosperous Mazwi tribe unites the Great Lakes regions, ending both the kingdoms of Alwani and Gelode Zardu, among many others, and its ruler claims the title of Mansa, Gold Emperor. Mawa Mazwi, and it's the guy that had the most gold ever, and ruined their economy of neighboring nations by giving it away. Funny story, but yeah. 825 ALB. Exactly 300 years after the fall of Hippone, Zidel, a priest of the town of Zoia, starts a revolt against the Quagatai Khanate, declaring all Zonican zebras should be freed and united under a single banner. This uprising, later dubbed the Zonican War of Independence, inspires similar revolts all across the north coast in Koltdar, which overwhelmed the Quagatai garrisons. Carthaginian Republic, Kingdom Warzina, and the Kingdom of Zumedia are founded after they attempt to create a pan-Zonican nation fails. 877 through 986 ALB. With the Industrial Revolution underway in Equestria, equestrian businessmen begin to invest in Mare Egypt. This brings great wealth and prosperity to the country at the cost of slowly weakening the Grand Prince's already fragile grasp over the region. Weakened by international politicking and long periods of ease, Arabia fails to react appropriately as their vassal becomes de facto part of the equestrian sphere of influence. Interesting. I wonder if that'll come into play once Mare Egypt actually has a focus tree. Around 900 ALB, South Zebris are formally established as a Federation colony under the sovereignty of the Griffonian Empire. Growing decadence and impotence of the Saddle dynasty leads to the southern province becoming independent from Saddle Arabia. Interesting, so this was actually officially under the Griffonian Empire at one point. Okay, interesting. 901 ALB, Claw Wominic Restoration as Sibia. Darn it, I can't pronounce that one. King Meowdros II begins a modernization of the kingdom. End of the Abyssinian Dark Age, beginning of its Golden Age. It ceases to be a tributary of Saddle Arabia. 903 ALB, Noctilucent Charm of Kyria enacts the silence after the destruction of the capital would bring great change to the Kyrian society, reverting any modernization and situation for the sake of peace and stability. This leads to Zerikian states becoming independent once more. Yeah, this one's very interesting. I'm very interested to see how they handle the silence in the mod, and if they actually have the ponies come over and help with that like they do in the show. I'm very curious about that. 947 ALB. The city of Klugetown declares independence from Saudi Arabia and states its intentions to remain neutral in all future conflicts, quickly abolishing all old laws. It becomes infamous for allowing every illicit trade imaginable. Amazing. 956 ALB. The newly united Zeratian tribe seized the city of Tobuk from the kingdom of Warzina. Now we're getting into stuff that the mod references. 971 ALB. Nakshish's charm of Kyria dies and is succeeded by by her daughter, Rainshine, who continues to impose the silence. Never mind, we've left the stuff in the story already. 975 ALB. Zamakar Zarka becomes Sulfred of Carthage. He turns the nation from a republic into an oligarchical dictatorship. He hires an influential group of academics known as the Sulfuric Clique to help run the nation. Their economic policies import the industrial evolution into Carthage, but at the cost of selling off their land to foreign investors. He established a treaty of friendship and support with the heirs of their ancient rival, Wingbardi. 979, Wingbardi purchases the island of Persia from Abyssinia in exchange for a large amount of money, which is invested into developing the nation. Wingbardi uses the island to secure their trade routes to Saddle Arabia. 981, Subdin Beg, last descendants of Ivor and the ruler of Isu Hevima, or protector of Usi Hevima now, attempts to reclaim the rebellious native Indian realm of Barsika and restores authority over the industrializing Yardle of Shtal, which he views as part of his ancestral land as per the right of the ancient deer law. Ah, I see. 982 ALB, Subdin Beg lands in Kanimpura in eastern Shtal, but is driven back by Shateli forces, including young Jacob the Grey, who becomes the main target of praise for his decisive actions against the raiders. He retreats and is killed at sea, bringing an end to Usi Hervima's claim to the deer law, and a start of a new native age. 986 ALB, Macawia invades the weakened nation of Usi Hervima with the help of pirates, who see the Viking raiders as their rivals. The protectorate of Usi Herma is established. 987 ALB, the Birthday Revolt. That's hilarious. On Grand Prince's birthday, a national holiday, a large group of student protesters occupied the central square of Somnamula in Mare Egypt. This leads to a series of events which result in Mare Egypt becoming independent from Saudi Arabia. Ah! So they finally become officially independent. 988 ALB. In the tumult following independence, Abyssinian troops crossed the border into Main Delusia, occupying historically feline territory. Meacham forces are unable to organize properly due to the chaotic internal situation, leading to a large territorial losses. But General Farhook rallies the armies and she defeats the Abyssinian forces in the Battle of Ratafet. Farhook's forces drive the cats back out of Sinai, but are unable to bypass Abyssinian fortifications and cult. Eventually, the war ends in stalemate without a formal peace agreement. Fair. 989 ALB. Saudi Arabia loses control of the Daki regions and Yemen, leaving them only with their heartland. Yeah, and then that's not all that's going to happen bad to Saudi Arabia, but we'll see that, I suppose, soon enough. Here we go. A single Yeti reunites his race under one banner and calls himself the Storm King. He begins assembling a mighty fleet of airships to support his army. 1000 ALB. The Kingdom of Hyena is the first to fall to the Storm King's armies. Though fighting to the bitter end, the aging, corrupt kingdom is unable to stop the Yetis. In the end, the kingdom disintegrates. Only a local cult of mystics, the Kaladi Dervish, are able to keep up actual resistance. 1002 ALB. Mazwi Empire's succession war is followed by an immediate invasion by the Storm King. Despite the intervention of the Hyena dervishes, the Storm King pillages the region and destroys the Mazwian army in a single decisive battle. Afterward, he invades and plunders the peninsula of Riazi. Rome defeats Transvaal, capturing many areas from the Colpels. Woo! 1003 ALB. The Storm King invades Cape Hestrala, hiring a local tribal army to aid him. Meanwhile, he sends his generals to begin the eastern campaign across the Zebhara Desert. Hippogriphia catches wind of the Storm King's conquest and begins plans for an evacuation into Equestria if they cannot raise an army in time. Intervention of Saudi Arabia to Equestria and Enzuruk from the Storm King, meeting of the Storm King and the unicorn called Tempest Shadow. His plans for eastern Zebrica are called off, and the army moves north. Seeing them approaching with no real army, the hippogriffs retreat underwater to Equestria. 1004 ALB. Kursesbeg leads an army to conquer the weak and divided nations of Hestra, which were pillaged by the Storm King. He takes control of a large area and seizes some land from Mertonia, or the Duchy of Mertonia, and Asterlonia, as well as forming Kirkadenistan. The Storm King's army invades Mare Egypt. The defensive lines planned on the southern border are overrun in a week, and only extensive equestrian material aid enables the Mare Egyptian army to recover itself. The army establishes a defensive line on the coast where they hope to receive equestrian supplies. Despite a much more competent showing after receiving equestrian military aid and a spirited defense by General Farhook, they are still defeated within a few months. Many Mare Egyptian volunteered for the Storm King army, especially in the Abyssinian campaign. Cluj Town surrenders and negotiates a status as a tributary. Abyssinia surrenders early in 1005, and Mare Egyptians occupy Mandalusia and eastern Abyssinia. Hippogriff evacuation to Equestria is complete. 1005 ALB. Pillaging of the northern Zebrican coast, the Storm King invades Carthage, destroying the unprepared army and ransacking the nation. Zamakar Zarka dies, his sons flee to the mountains above Zur to wage a guerrilla war against the invaders. Macawea and Asturian successfully prevent any naval invasions by the Storm King. Accord reached between the Storm Kingdom and the Kingdom of Wingbardi, allowing Wingbardi to acquire a port in Abyssinia and compensation for damage done to Wingbardian business in Carthage. The Kingdom of Abyssinia has no part in the negotiations, despite never agreeing to cede land to either the Storm Kingdom or Wingbardi. As the Storm King prepares for the overseas invasion of Equestria, Twilight Sparkle and her friends arrive in Mount Ares and convince the hippogriffs to come out of hiding and face the Storm King. The Battle of Antratgorate commences. The Storm King is betrayed by his general, Tempest Shadow, and is slain. His main army is destroyed. 1006 ALB. Total collapse of the Storm Kingdom. The Storm King's general fight each other for the throne, dividing themselves into the Icepaw, Thunderian, Griswinded, and Stormland successor states, while two others established their own nations, the Central Zebrican Empire and the Boltria. Military despots in Tobuk plan for the invasion of Equestria by the Storm King, or military depots in a Twobuk, planned for the invasion of Equestria by the Storm King, are taken over by gun traffickers, causing increased instability on the continent, proclaiming the Republic of Tobuk. Zalathel Zarka, son of the former ruler Zamkar Zarka, is elected Sulfrid of Kolthage by the Carthaginian Senate. The peace treaty was in Zanzal and Rome ends, leading to a short war that quickly ends due to the rising threat of Zeblu nearby. The return of Semnebula from Limbo brings hope to Mary Egypt. Though not part of the government and quite out of her time, her fame is such that she becomes something of an unofficial head of state, and politicians court her approval. And then Kyria officially ends the silence after a visit by 2 Twilight Sparkle friends. Ah, okay. So that does happen before. They're just still dealing with the aftermath? Is that how it works? Because they have an effect called the silence on their nation. I'm not sure. And then in 1007, Equestria War begins. And that is the last continent that we have to explore the lore of before the lore of the actual game begins and the nations of Equestria War begin their forever journey to beat each other up relentlessly. But if you're excited to watch more of my normal Hoi 4 content or more different types of lore videos in the future, like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell button. And as always, peace.